The rain began the moment Alara Voss turned onto the long gravel road. By the time her car stopped in front of the villa, thunder rolled over the hills like something enormous waking up. The house stood alone, tall, pale stone, narrow windows, and a rusted iron gate hanging open. Alara stepped out, hugging her coat. "Perfect," she muttered. "A horror movie house." She wasn't joking much, but rent in the city had doubled, and the listing for Blackthorn Villa was unbelievably cheap. A tall man waited under the porch light. The landlord. "Miss Voss?" he asked. "Yes." He handed her a heavy brass key. His hand trembled slightly. "You can stay as long as you want. Just don't go into the east wing after midnight." Alara blinked. "I am sorry, what?" He forced a laugh. "Old house rules, pipes and such." "Uh-huh." She took the key anyway. The landlord left unusually fast. The moment his car lights disappeared down the road, the villa seemed quieter. Too quiet. Inside, the house smelled of dust and old wood. Alara unpacked a few things and tried to ignore the strange feeling crawling along her spine. At 1:17 a.m., something tapped. Tap, tap, tap. Alara opened one eye. Branches? Tap. It came from the hallway. She grabbed her phone flashlight and stepped out. The corridor stretched long and dim. Then she saw it, a portrait on the wall. A man with pale skin, dark hair, and haunting gray eyes stared from the painting. The plaque beneath read, "Lysander Hale, owner with Blackthorn Villa, 1892 to 1926. Alara frowned. "Great," she whispered. "Dead rich guy." Behind her, a floorboard creaked. She turned. Nothing. But the tapping had stopped. By the third night, Alara had stopped pretending the house was normal. Doors opened by themselves, cold spots appeared in the hallway, and every time she walked past Lysander's portrait, the eyes followed her. Tonight, she stood in front of it with folded arms. "Okay," she said. Silence. "I know you're doing this." Thunder boomed outside. Then, a voice, low, soft, right behind her. "You came back." Alara froze. Slowly, she turned. A man stood in the hallway. Not solid, not transparent either. Like smoke shaped into a person. Dark hair, pale skin, the same gray eyes. Lysander Hale. Her throat tightened. "Okay," she whispered. "Either I'm dreaming or I've lost my mind." He stared at her like someone seeing the impossible. "Aurelia? Who?" He stepped closer. The air grew freezing. His voice trembled. "You left me. I literally got here 3 days ago." "You died," he whispered. "I watched them bury you." Alara backed up. "Listen, ghost guy. My name is Lysander. Great, Lysander. I am not whoever you think I am." But he kept staring. Not with anger, with heartbreak. "You have her eyes." Her chest tightened. "That doesn't mean anything." He reached out slowly. His hand passed through her shoulder, but she still felt it. Cold. A chill that sank into her bones. Lysander shut his eyes. Not her. Something in his expression cracked, like a fragile thing finally breaking. "You aren't her." "No." Silence filled the hallway. Then suddenly, all the doors slammed shut. The lights flickered violently. Wind roared through the corridor, though every window was closed. Alara jumped. "Hey!" Lysander's voice dropped to something darker. "But you could be." Her stomach dropped. "What?" His gaze sharpened. I waited 100 years. The temperature plummeted. Shadows twisted along the walls. I searched every soul that entered this house. His voice became hollow. And now fate brings me someone who looks like her. Alara's heart hammered. That's not fate. That's coincidence. He tilted his head. You will learn her name. The shadows crept closer. Aurelia. The walls whispered with him. Aurelia. Alara backed toward the stairs. I'm not becoming your dead girlfriend. His expression turned terrifyingly calm. You already live in her room. Her breath caught. The east wing, he said softly. You sleep in her bed. Her pulse pounded. And every night, he stepped closer. You dream of drowning. Alara's blood ran cold. Because she had. Every night. Water. Cold water. A woman's scream. And gray eyes watching from beneath the surface. How do you know that? She whispered. Lysander's smile was gentle. Devoted. Obsessed. Because I was there. Thunder crashed. And for the first time, Alara realized something horrifying. Maybe the villa wasn't trying to scare her away. Maybe it had been waiting for her. The rain returned on the fourth night. Alara sat on the edge of the old bed in the east wing, staring at the cracked ceiling. She hadn't meant to sleep here, but somehow she always woke up in this room, the room Lysander called Aurelia's. Wind rattled the tall windows. Alara whispered to the darkness, Okay, ghost, we need rules. Silence. Then the air behind her turned cold. A familiar voice answered quietly, You speak as though you are not the trespasser. Alara sighed. Great, you again. She turned. Lysander Hale stood near the window, pale moonlight passing through his faint form. He looked almost human tonight. Almost. Alara crossed her arms. You've been messing with my dreams. They are not dreams. Her stomach tightened. Then what are they? His gray eyes softened strangely. Memories. That's impossible. Is it? Lightning flashed outside. For a moment, his expression looked hopeful, dangerously hopeful. You stand in her room. You sleep in her bed. The house remembers. Alara shook her head. No, I don't remember anything about your Aurelia. Lysander slowly approached. Each step made the air colder. You remember the lake. Her chest tightened. That's coincidence. You hear her scream. Her hands clenched. You feel the water filling your lungs. Her breath stopped. Stop! The word echoed through the room. The walls trembled slightly. Lysander studied her carefully. You do remember. I said stop. She stood up suddenly. The floor creaked loudly. You keep pushing this insane story that I'm some reincarnated lover or something. I never said reincarnation. Alara frowned. Then what? His gaze darkened. I said the house remembers. The door slammed shut behind her. Alara jumped. Seriously? Stop doing that. Lysander ignored her frustration. Instead, he whispered, She drowned. The words felt heavy, like a stone sinking in water. Aurelia drowned in the lake behind this villa. Alara felt something twist in her stomach. I didn't kill her. His voice cracked slightly. They said I did. Lightning illuminated the room. His face looked tortured. I loved her. Silence filled the space between them. Alara studied him carefully. Ghost or not, the grief in his eyes looked real. "So what happened?" she asked quietly. Lysander didn't answer immediately. Instead, he lifted one hand slowly. "Come here." "No." His mouth twitched slightly. "You fear me?" "You threatened to replace your dead girlfriend with me, so yeah." He actually looked embarrassed. "That was poorly phrased." "You think?" For the first time, Lysander let out a quiet laugh. It sounded strangely human. Then he grew serious again. "Touch my hand." Alara stared at him. "Your hand literally goes through things." "Not tonight." "Why?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "Because the house is waking up." The lights flickered. A deep groaning sound echoed somewhere in the walls. Like old wood stretching after a long sleep. Alara hesitated. "Fine," she muttered. She reached out. Their hands touched. Cold exploded through her arm. Then, the room vanished. Alara gasped. She stood beside a dark lake. Moonlight shimmered on the water. A woman stood at the edge. Long, pale dress, dark hair. Her face turned slightly. Alara's breath caught. The woman looked exactly like her. "Aurelia," Lysander whispered beside her. The memory moved like a living scene. Aurelia stepped backward nervously. "You shouldn't have brought me here," she said. A man stood in front of her. Not Lysander, a stranger. Tall, angry. "You were supposed to marry me." Aurelia shook her head. "I never loved you." The man grabbed her arm. "You belong to me." Alara felt panic rising. "Wait." But the memory continued. Aurelia struggled. "Let go." The man shoved her. She slipped on the wet stones and fell into the black water. Her scream echoed across the lake. Alara ran toward the edge. "Someone help her." But nobody moved. Lysander stood frozen beside her, his face full of horror. "I arrived too late," he whispered. In the water, Aurelia thrashed. Then suddenly, something else moved beneath the surface. Something large, something wrong. The water twisted like a living thing. Dark shadows wrapped around her legs, dragging her deeper. Her scream turned into choking silence. Alara's heart pounded. "What the hell is that?" Lysander's voice shook. The lake, the water swallowed Aurelia completely. And just before the surface closed, her eyes opened, and she looked directly at Alara, like she could see her. Then, darkness. Alara snapped back into the bedroom. She collapsed to the floor, gasping. Lysander stood above her. What you saw was truth. Alara's hands trembled. That thing in the lake. His expression hardened. It took her. "And you think it wants me too?" Lysander didn't answer. The floor beneath them creaked. Then, from far outside, a wet sound echoed through the night, like something heavy dragging itself out of water. Alara slowly turned toward the window and whispered, "Please tell me that's not real." Lysander's voice was quiet, terrified. "It's early." Another wet dragging sound came closer. Then something slammed against the villa's front door. Once. Twice. Crack. Lysander's gray eyes widened. "It found you already." Lysander's POV. "I knew the moment she stepped into the villa." 100 years of silence, and suddenly the house breathed again. The door creaked open, and there she stood in the rain, dark hair clinging to her face, eyes scanning the hallway with cautious curiosity. My heart stopped, or what remained of it. Aurelia. For a moment, I believed the world had undone its cruelty. I stood at the top of the staircase, watching her from the shadows. "I told you not to come back," I whispered, though she could not hear me. She walked past the portrait in the hallway. My portrait. She glanced at it briefly. "Dead rich guy," she muttered. I almost smiled. Aurelia used to say similar things about the aristocrats who visited the villa. But this woman was not Aurelia. Not yet. Ghosts do not sleep. We wait. We remember. We rot in our own memories. So I watched her. She unpacked her bags in the guest room at first, but the house does not forget its mistress. The doors opened. The floor creaked. The wind pushed gently. By midnight, she had wandered into the east wing, into Aurelia's room. I stood beside the bed as she lay down. "You shouldn't sleep here," I whispered. She shivered under the blanket. Good. The house recognized her too. When she slept, the dreams began. I felt them ripple through the walls. Water, screaming, cold lake water filling lungs. Her fingers twitched. She whispered in her sleep, "Help me." My throat tightened. The exact same words, the exact same voice. For a moment, I nearly reached for her, but I stopped because I remembered the last time I touched Aurelia. Her skin had already been cold. She confronted my portrait. Bold girl. "I know you're doing this," she said. I stood behind her, so alive, so warm, so painfully human. "You came back," I told her. She froze like prey sensing a predator. When she turned and saw me, her fear flooded the hallway. Fear is a strange thing for ghosts. We do not feel it the same way the living do, but we taste it, and hers tasted like lightning. "I'm dreaming," she whispered. "No," I said softly. I studied her face. Every detail burned into my mind. The curve of her cheek, the shape of her eyes, even the stubborn line of her mouth. So similar, too similar. "Aurelia?" I asked. But the moment I touched her, I knew. Not her. Just a woman wearing the same face fate once stole from me. The grief nearly tore the house apart. Doors slammed, walls shook. I did not mean to frighten her, but ghosts are made of emotion, and mine has never been quiet. I told her Aurelia drowned. That part was true. I told her the lake took her. Also true. But there are truths even I cannot bear to speak aloud. Because the lake, it did not simply take Aurelia. It called to her. The same way it now calls to Alara. Every night I feel it, the pull from the water behind the villa. The thing beneath the surface is awake again. And it knows, it always knows, when a soul connected to Aurelia returns. When Alara touched my hand, the memory opened. I watched her face as she saw the truth of that night. The man, the push, the water. But I watched something else too. When Aurelia's body sank beneath the lake, Alara reacted before the memory even finished, like she already knew. That terrified me, because memories do not travel through blood, but souls. Souls are far stranger things. Now I stand beside the window of the east wing. The rain is falling again. Alara is breathing hard behind me, still shaken from the vision. And outside the villa, I hear it. The wet, dragging sound. Closer, closer. The creature has left the lake. I close my eyes. For a century, I waited for Aurelia to return. Now fate has brought me a woman with her face, and something else has come to claim her. I turn to Alara slowly. She whispers, terrified, "Please tell me that noise isn't what I think it is." I wish I could lie, but ghosts have little left except honesty. "No," I tell her quietly. My eyes drift toward the front door, shaking under another heavy slam. It's worse. The door cracks again. Wood splinters. Water begins leaking beneath it. Black lake water. And something moves in it. Something that remembers the night it swallowed Aurelia. Something that now whispers a name through the flooded hallway. Alara. My chest tightens with a feeling I thought death had stolen from me. Fear. Because the lake has come to take her. And this time, I might be the only thing standing in its way. I had spent a century believing death was the end of pain. I was wrong. Pain simply becomes quieter when you are dead. Quieter, but never gone. And now I watched Alara standing in Aurelia's room, her back against the wall, eyes wide as the front door below finally gave way. The wood shattered. Black water rushed into the villa. Not normal water. Lake water. Cold. Thick. Moving like it had its own breath. Alara whispered, That's not possible." I stared down the staircase. Something crawled inside. A shape formed in the spreading water. Too long. Too thin. Like a human body stretched by darkness. The creature dragged itself forward slowly. The floorboards groaned beneath its weight. Then it lifted its head. Where a face should be, there was only shifting black water. But a voice came from it. Wet. Broken. "Alara." She grabbed my arm instinctively. Her hand passed partly through me. "Make it stop," she whispered. If I could still have a heartbeat, it would have broken then. Because I finally understood the truth. It wasn't calling Alara. It was calling Aurelia. "Alara," I said quietly. She looked at me, terrified. "What? You were never meant to live here. No kidding. The house brought you. What does that even mean?" I stepped closer to her. The lake took Aurelia's body, but not all of her soul. Her breathing slowed. Confused. "What?" It scattered. I touched the wall gently. The house held part of it. The lake held the rest. And the world carried what remained. Her eyes widened slowly. "You think I'm part of her?" "Yes." The creature began crawling up the staircase, each step dripping black water. "Alara." She shook her head. No. I'm not some ghost puzzle piece." "Maybe not," I said, "but you are enough." The creature reached the top step. The hallway temperature dropped violently. Water spread across the floor toward us. The thing lifted its head. "You returned." Alara whispered, "What does it want?" My voice felt hollow. The same thing it wanted 100 years ago. To finish taking Aurelia. I had waited 100 years for Aurelia to return. For a second chance. But looking at Alara now, I realized something. She wasn't Aurelia. She was braver. Aurelia had feared the lake. Alara was staring straight at the monster, her hand shaking, but she stood her ground. "I'm not going with that thing," she said. Good, because I had made my decision. "Alara," I said softly. "Yes? When I say run, run to the lake." Her face twisted. "Are you insane?" "Trust me. I barely trust the electricity in this house." The creature moved closer. Water stretched toward her feet like reaching fingers. "Alara." I stepped forward. Between them, the creature stopped. Its watery face twisted slightly. "Lysander." Of course it remembered me. "I know what you are," I told it. The lake creature's voice gurgled. "You promised." Yes, that was the truth I had never told Alara. 100 years ago, when Aurelia disappeared beneath the lake, I had begged the darkness for her life, and the lake answered. It promised to return her, one day, in pieces. But the price was my soul bound to this house forever. The creature spoke again. "You belong to the lake." "Perhaps," I said quietly, "but she doesn't." Alora grabbed my sleeve again. "What are you doing?" I turned to her. For the first time in a century, I smiled without grief. "You gave me something I thought I lost." "What?" "An ending." Then I pushed her toward the staircase. "Run." She ran through the storm. Rain soaked her instantly. Behind us, the creature screamed. The entire villa shook as it followed. Alara reached the edge of the lake and turned. "What now?" The creature emerged from the villa behind her, stretching across the ground like living water. I walked forward, into the rain, toward the lake. "Lysander," she shouted. "You said run, not die." I looked at her one last time. "You're not Aurelia? Good. But you carry the part of her that wanted to live." The creature surged toward her. I stepped into its path. "You took her once," I told the darkness. "You will not take her again." The lake roared. Water surged up like a rising wall. The creature swallowed me whole. Cold. Endless cold. But I held on. Every memory, every moment, every piece of grief. I pulled it with me into the depths. The lake churned violently. Then, silence. The water stilled. The creature was gone. And so was I. 1 year later, Blackthorn Villa was demolished. The lake remained, but it was quiet now. Peaceful. Alara stood on the shore. The wind moved softly across the water. She whispered into the air. "You idiot ghost." A faint ripple crossed the surface of the lake, almost like laughter. Alara smiled sadly. "I hope you finally found her." For a moment, the lake shimmered under the sunlight, and deep beneath the calm water, 2 shadows drifted together. At last, not lost, not waiting, just finally free. Because it's the rule of this world that the dead and living can't be together. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe for more. And those who already subscribed, thank you so much. Your support means a lot.